we've reached Boston. So, got my new Boston hat, a gifted Boston Bruins jersey. Thank you very much. And it's time to discuss the Boston Bruins going forward, coming out of their second round loss to Tampa, and why I'm still in a good mood about it. They don't have a first round pick this year. They lost that in the Rick Nash deal. I'm okay with that too. We'll see if I'm okay with it 3 years from now. We'll see whatever that draft pick becomes, whatever kind of player it is. They've got their own second round pick. They got Florida's third round pick. They've got a fourth, sixth, and seventh, which means they've got 5 draft picks this year, which is okay, and I'll tell you why. When you look at their contracts, David Krejci, $7.25 million for 3 more years. That's a bit much. And I'm being honest. Krejci is not worth $7.25 million anymore. He had an okay run in the playoffs. He didn't have a fantastic run in the playoffs. He was good enough in the second round that it kind of made me forget how virtually invisible he was in parts of the first round. Bergeron, $6.875 million for 4 more years. Bergeron, of course, is a bargain when he's healthy. And his health is becoming more and more of an issue. And yet, even though he missed a bunch of games this year, Boston's record when he was out was pretty darn good. Pastrnak, $6.66 million for 5 more years, proving you have to make a deal with the devil if you're going to get Pastrnak for a solid cap hit. If you're going to sell your soul, you might as well do it for Pastrnak. He's a UFA at the end of that. Marchand, $6.125 million for 6 more years. And I'm honestly okay with that. Now, Marchand, of course, there's the infamous incidents in the playoffs with Komarov and then with Callahan, which proves that if you're going to lick somebody, make sure it's the Finnish guy and not the Callahan. I believe he's American. You got to watch who it is because the NHL will warn you for one and not for the other. But outside of that, Marchand seems kind of to understand that he crossed the line there. Interviews after they got eliminated seem to indicate that he got told off by management and by his teammates. And if you looked at the team's reaction to that incident, they were not happy with him either. And when he plays and when he's on, that $6 million is a bargain. He is worth so much more than that. And if he can stay healthy for a full year and avoid a suspension, he could get himself into Hart Trophy consideration, which would make everybody uncomfortable, including me. David Backes, $6 million for 3 more years. Backes is not worth $125,000 less than Marchand. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I even when the deal was signed, I was kind of iffy about it, and now we're 2 years into it, and it looks even worse. I don't know that they need Backes after this season. If they could find a taker, I think they'd do it, because I think this roster is going to develop further, and I think Backes' role is going to diminish further. Both Nashes are unrestricted free agents, both Rick and Riley, so I didn't see the point in differentiating which one was where on the list because they're both unrestricted. And I would love to see Riley Nash back with the Bruins. Rick, I'd be okay either way. If they re-sign him, great. If they don't, that's fine too. I thought Rick Nash's effort was there. They didn't bring him in to be the number 1 top-line guy anyways. His production in the playoffs did it sag, I guess. During the regular season, it was pretty good. I would still bring him back just because he's a 20-25 goal scorer. He's not the player he was in his youth, but I would still bring him back as a support guy if he's willing to take a bit of a pay cut. Bjork. If Bjork could be healthy all season next year, that'd be great. Because Bjork played relatively well for the Bruins. I thought Bjork was decent when he played for them. He just didn't get a chance to play that full season, so I'm not quite sure where his ceiling is. But he's got 2 more years left on his contract. Ryan Donato, 1 year left, $900K, and then he's restricted free agent. Danton Heinen, $872K. That's a bargain. He didn't have a great second round, but you know what? A lot of these guys are kids, and they'll learn. Jake DeBrusk, I think he was playing hurt in the second round, $863K for 2 more years. Sean Corrali is a restricted free agent with arbitration rights. I would expect Don Sweeney to get that done quickly. Tim Schaller, Tommy Wingles, and Brian Giunta are all unrestricted, and I would be very surprised if any of them, other than maybe Schaller, come back. I don't think Wingles or Giunta will be brought back. Noel Acciari, $700K for 1 more year. I thought Achari played relatively well. He's UFA next summer. They could sit down with him this summer and talk about a couple of years extension at maybe $1 million per, something like that. On the blue line, Chara, late in the season, signed a 1-year, $5 million extension, so he's back for one more year next year. Torrey Krug, $5.25 million for 2 more years, which is a bargain for the amount of points that Krug can produce when he's on, and he's a great power play guy. If he can ever get his 5-on-5 game down, if he can ever get the defensive side of the game, he can be fantastic. McQuaid, $2.75 million for 1 more year. Miller, 2 more years at $2.5 million. Nick Holden's UFA. I don't think he's coming back. Nick Holden wasn't one of the top 6 in the playoffs. He didn't get in until Krug got hurt, and he didn't stand out in that game either. McAvoy, $916K. He is the big free agent. He's a restricted free agent next summer, not this summer. I would expect him to sit down and get an extension done this summer. Grzelcyk's a restricted free agent with arbitration rights. He'll get a raise, not a huge one, but he'll get a raise. I think Grzelcyk played really well for Boston when he had the chance. Carlo, $789K for 1 more year, and he's going to get a huge raise as well. I would think $2.5-3 million probably, or more. And does he sign this summer, or does he just wait throughout the year and see how much better it can get? Losing Carlo on the blue line had an effect on them in the playoffs. I didn't use it as an excuse for why Tampa knocked them out. I think if Boston had been 100% healthy, I still think Tampa wins that series, but there were a lot of injuries on this team. In net, Tuukka Rask, $7 million for 3 more years. Yes, we need more out of Tuukka Rask than we've had the last couple of seasons. He's not a world beater. He's got the one Vezina to his name. I don't think he wins another one in his career. But he's a good average, a little bit above average type goaltender. He's good. He's capable of playing very, very well. The Bruins need him to play extremely well for an extended period, and we haven't seen that. We saw that towards the end of this regular season. We didn't see it in the playoffs, though. Hudobin's a UFA this summer. I don't know if they bring him back or not. Now, if you look at prospects, Forsbacka Karlsson, I thought Forsbacka Karlsson was going to play this year. He ended up being in the minors for the most part. Sporil may get a shot at the roster next year because with the departure of Holden and the fact that they keep dealing with injuries on the blue line, and Sporil's a big physical defenseman, you might want to bring him in and have McQuaid and Miller kind of show him how it gets done, especially Miller. Kevin Miller's defensive game has been on point for the last year or so, and it's shut me up in my criticisms of him. Zach Senyshyn, I don't know if he gets in the roster at all, but I had to put his name on the board or else Bruins fans would probably say, what about Zach? I'm not a huge fan of Senyshyn, and I've said that the whole way through. Jack Studnicka, I may get a shot because he's a center, but Trent Frederick, in my eyes, will get a shot at this roster in the fall. There are a lot of good prospects, and Frederick looks like he could end up being another steal for Boston. Zach McIntyre I've got on the board because you need a second goalie, and he's as close as they've got to a guy who might be ready to step in and be the backup. This is where they may miss Malcolm Subban, but I honestly think they can go out and find somebody, or perhaps find a free agent to bring in and play backup if Hudobin's not brought back. And Vakanainen, I may have brutalized Vakanainen's name. He hasn't signed a contract with Boston yet, so we can't make any assumptions. But based on the fact that your blue line deals with injuries regularly, I could see him getting in there. He's a mobile defenseman. He's considered a little more offensive than Carlo. Not quite as gifted as McAvoy. That works for me. Get him in the lineup. This is Chara's last year coming up. And the Bruins have $14 million in cap space if the cap goes to $80 million. Of course, Kuraly will lead into that a little bit. Grzelcyk a little bit. They don't really have any big names to replace. Even though Rick Nash and Riley Nash are both UFAs, they could bring them back. Absolutely. But the problem with bringing back, say, Rick Nash, they bring him back, they do have some RFAs they're going to have to deal with as soon as next summer. And you're going to need money to sign them. So odds are Rick Nash probably moves on. Riley Nash, I think they can probably bring back and probably not have that eat into the cap space too much. It's a fun team to watch. To me, they overachieved this year. I didn't expect as much out of them as I got. And if the kids are capable of taking that next step, if all of these young guys in this roster, if this fast, young team is capable of making that next step, Boston could win their division next year, and it could be quite a run for them next year. But again, we're too far out for that. So I'm going to stop speculating beyond that. But this was a fun team to watch this year, and I look forward to seeing some of the guys on this side of the board getting their shot at the roster. Let me know anybody else that you feel is in the Boston system that you think is going to get a shot next year. Who else they could possibly pursue. And don't say Tavares, because it's not going to happen. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And it was a fun season, and honestly, and every now and then I'll see in the comment section that, oh, you're salty because the Bruins are out. Anybody who thinks I'm salty because the Bruins are out, I see the big picture. This team has a fantastic young blue line, some really good young forwards. All they're lacking is that good young goalie, that player like a Matt Murray in Pittsburgh. And I'd be predicting a future Stanley Cup at some point. But as long as Rask is the starter, I don't see it. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll talk to you again soon.